The man who left me for a millionaire woman was now on his knees at my doorstep, begging me to take him back. But he had no idea, the day he walked out on me was the day I decided I would never let him back into my life. Then he said something that made my entire world stop, because the truth he was about to reveal would change everything. The ballroom was filled with laughter, champagne, and hundreds of smiling faces that I stood quietly near my sister Emily's wedding table, trying to enjoy the night. Then Emily looked at me, her smile disappeared. "Why are you sitting here?" she asked loudly. Everyone around us turned that I froze. "What do you mean?" She pointed at my chair. "This table is for my husband's family. You should sit somewhere else." A few guests exchanged uncomfortable looks that I forced a smile. "Emily, I'm your sister." She laughed. "That doesn't mean you belong everywhere." Then she grabbed the back of my chair and pulled it away that I nearly fell. The room went silent. My face burned with embarrassment, but Emily wasn't finished. She leaned toward me and whispered, "You've always wanted attention. Tonight, you're not getting it." I looked at her. She thought she had just broken me. She had no idea what was inside my handbag, and more importantly, she had no idea why I had brought it to her wedding. I picked up my chair and walked away without saying a word. Behind me, I could hear Emily laughing with her friends. "She always makes everything about herself," she said that I pretended not to hear. But inside my handbag was a small black envelope, and inside that envelope was something Emily had spent months trying to hide. That I walked toward the restroom and locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I opened the envelope. Inside were printed messages, bank records, and one photograph. That I stared at the photograph for several seconds. Emily had told everyone that her wedding was paid for by her fiancé's family. But the records told a completely different story. Someone had secretly paid for almost everything, and that someone was not her fiancé. That I put everything back in the envelope. That I wasn't ready to expose her, not yet. When I returned to the ballroom, Emily was standing beside her new husband, smiling for photographs. Then she noticed me. Her smile suddenly disappeared. She walked straight toward me and whispered, "Tell me you didn't bring those documents here." I looked at her calmly. "Why?" I asked. "What are you so afraid everyone will find out?" Emily's face went pale. Then someone behind us called her name, and she turned around, because the person who had just arrived was the last person she expected to see. Emily slowly turned around. Standing near the entrance was a man I hadn't seen in years, her face lost all color. Daniel. Her new husband, Michael, looked confused. "Who is that?" Daniel didn't answer. He simply walked toward us holding a folder. Emily grabbed his arm. "You can't be here." Daniel looked at her coldly. "You said I would never see you again." The music continued playing, but everyone nearby had started watching. I stayed silent. Emily looked at me. "You brought him here." I shook my head. "I didn't invite him." Daniel placed the folder on the table. "I came because you stopped answering my calls." Michael opened the folder. His expression changed immediately. "What is this?" Emily tried to take it from him. "Michael, don't." He pulled it away. Inside were bank statements, messages, and a copy of a contract. Michael looked at Emily. "You told me this debt was paid." Emily said nothing. Then Daniel pointed toward me. "She knows everything." Emily's eyes locked onto mine. For the first time that night, she looked genuinely afraid, but Daniel still hadn't revealed the worst part. He leaned closer to Michael and said, "There's one more thing you need to know about your wife." Michael slowly looked up. "What?" Daniel opened the final page, and everyone at the table went completely silent. Michael stared at the final page. His eyes moved slowly across the document. Then he looked at Emily. "You told me you met Daniel only once." Emily's lips trembled. "I can explain." Daniel shook his head. "No. You can't." Michael turned the page. There were messages between Emily and Daniel from months before the wedding. But the messages weren't romantic. They were about money. Emily had borrowed a huge amount from Daniel and promised to pay him back before the wedding. Instead, she had used the money to make her wedding look luxurious. Then she had told Michael that his parents were paying for everything. Michael looked devastated, but I still hadn't said a word. Emily suddenly came toward me. "You knew about this?" I looked her directly in the eyes. I knew enough to understand why you were so desperate to keep me away from this wedding. She grabbed my arm. Please. Don't destroy my marriage. I pulled my arm away. You destroyed it yourself. Then Michael noticed something else in the folder. A bank transfer. The account belonged to me. His expression changed. Wait, he looked at Emily. Why did you transfer money to your sister? Emily went completely silent, because that payment proved something even worse. She hadn't only stolen Daniel's money, she had taken mine too, and I had the proof. Michael looked at the bank statement again. This account is yours, he said to me. I nodded. Emily immediately stepped between us. It was a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. A misunderstanding that cost me everything. The room became completely silent. Months earlier, Emily had begged me for money, claiming she needed it for an emergency. She promised she would return every dollar. Instead, she used it to pay for the wedding, and when I asked for it back, she blocked my number. Michael looked at her in disbelief. You stole from your own sister. Emily's eyes filled with tears. I was desperate. No, I said calmly. You were selfish. Then I pulled out my phone. I have something else. I opened a recording. Emily's own voice filled the room. She was speaking to me weeks earlier. Don't worry. Once I marry Michael, his family will cover everything. You'll get your money back. Michael's face turned pale. His mother stood up from the table. What did you just say? Emily froze. She realized the recording had been played in front of the one person whose opinion mattered most, her mother-in-law. Then Michael slowly removed his wedding ring. Emily stared at him. Michael, what are you doing? He looked at her and said quietly, I think you owe everyone here an explanation. But before Emily could answer, her mother suddenly rushed toward me. And she whispered something that changed everything. My mother grabbed my hand and pulled me away from the crowd. Don't say anything else, she whispered. I stared at her. Why? She looked terrified because Emily isn't the only one hiding something. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Before she could answer, Emily rushed toward us. Mom, please. My mother stepped back. Emily looked at me with tears in her eyes. You don't understand what happened. I shook my head. No. You're right. I don't. Then my mother finally looked at me and said. Your sister didn't steal that money for the wedding. I frowned. Then what did she use it for? My mother hesitated. Your father. I froze. Why? Father had been gone for years. What does Dad have to do with this? She looked around to make sure nobody was listening. Your father left behind a debt, and Emily has been paying it secretly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then Michael walked toward us. I heard everything. Emily closed her eyes. Michael looked at her. What debt? Emily said nothing. Why? Mother slowly pointed toward the black envelope in my hand. The truth is in there. I opened it again. This time, I noticed a document I hadn't seen before. At the bottom was my father's signature, and beside it was a name that made my blood run cold. Michael's father. Michael stared at the document. My father? I nodded slowly. His expression changed. What did my father do with yours? Before I could answer, Emily stepped forward. Stop. Everyone turned toward her. For the first time, she wasn't angry, she was scared. Daniel opened his folder again. Your father borrowed money from Michael's father years ago, he said. But that debt was supposed to have been settled. Michael looked at Emily. Then why have you been paying it? Emily started crying. Because Dad left us with nothing. I shook my head. That still doesn't explain why you stole my money. Emily looked at me. I was trying to protect the family. By destroying me? She had no answer. Then Michael noticed another document inside the folder. He picked it up. His face went completely pale. This signature. He looked at his mother. Mom, is this Dad's signature? She took the paper from him. Her hands began to shake. Then she looked at me and whispered, your father didn't owe us money. The entire room went silent. He paid the debt years ago. I stared at her. Then where did all the money go? She looked directly at Emily, and Emily suddenly started crying, because the person who had been collecting the money all these years, wasn't Michael's father. It was someone much closer to us. Everyone turned toward my mother. She looked at Emily. Tell them the truth. Emily covered her face that I could barely breathe. Mom, who took the money? My mother slowly pointed at Emily. It was her. Emily started crying, but I didn't keep it, she whispered. Michael stepped forward. Then where did it go? Emily looked at me. I paid someone who threatened to expose Dad. My heart sank. What? She pulled another envelope from her wedding dress. Inside was an old photograph and several threatening letters. Someone had been blackmailing her for years, but the photograph revealed something none of us expected. The person threatening Emily wasn't a stranger. It was our uncle. Daniel immediately recognized him. He's the one who helped your father with the original debt. Michael looked at the documents. So my father's money was never stolen. Daniel nodded. It was being redirected. Then I noticed one final bank statement. The account receiving the money wasn't my uncle's. That it belonged to my mother. I looked at her in shock. Mom, why was your name on this account? She lowered her head. I was trying to protect you. But then Emily suddenly screamed, Mom, stop lying. The entire room froze, because Emily was about to reveal the one secret our mother had hidden from both of us for years. Emily pointed at my mother. Tell her why you opened that account. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I was protecting your father's name. I stepped closer. Dad has been gone for years. What are you still protecting? She finally opened the old envelope. Inside was a letter written by my father. I recognized his handwriting immediately. The letter said he had discovered that someone in the family was secretly taking money from him, but there was one line that made my blood run cold. If anything happens to me, do not trust the person who claims to have protected this family. I looked at my mother. You knew about this? She nodded. I found the letter after your father died. Michael took the letter from my hands, then he noticed the date. It had been written 3 days before my father disappeared. Everyone went silent. Emily whispered, Dad didn't die the way Mom told us. I stared at her. What are you saying? She looked toward the ballroom entrance. There was another person with Dad that night. Then the doors suddenly opened. An elderly man walked into the wedding. My mother immediately recognized him. Her face went completely pale, because he was the last person who should have been alive. The entire ballroom went silent. The elderly man slowly walked toward us. My mother stepped backward. Impossible. I looked at him. Who are you? He stopped in front of me. My name is Robert. Then he looked at my mother. And I was with your father the night he disappeared. My heart started pounding. Michael stepped forward. What happened that night? Robert took a deep breath. Your father discovered that someone was stealing money from both families. I looked at Emily. She lowered her head. Robert continued. He tried to expose the truth. But your mother begged him to stay silent because she was afraid the family would fall apart. My mother began crying, but I never heard him. Robert nodded. I know. Your father left that night because he wanted to protect his daughters. I couldn't believe it. Then why did everyone think he was dead? Robert reached into his coat and pulled out a letter. Because your father wanted you to believe he was gone. I opened the letter. It contained one final message. Never let money decide which daughter deserves love. I looked at Emily. For years, we had fought because of lies, jealousy, and money, but now the truth was finally out. Emily came toward me crying, I'm sorry. I didn't forgive her immediately, but I handed her the documents. Fix what you broke. Michael removed his wedding ring and walked away. Daniel took back the money he was owed, and my mother finally confessed everything she had hidden. That night, my sister lost her perfect wedding, but I gained something far more valuable, the truth, and from that day forward, I stopped trying to prove my worth to my family, because I finally understood. I never needed their approval in the first place. I listened to the recording again. There was no doubt that it was Emily's voice. The DNA report is fake. He'll believe anything if I tell him she cheated. My entire body went cold, but the recording continued. Once he leaves her, she'll have nobody. Then we can get the child under our control. I looked at my husband. You heard this before you came here? He nodded, yes. And there's more. He played another recording. This time, Emily was speaking to Daniel. She was laughing. He actually believed the photograph. I can't believe how easy it was. I felt tears running down my face. For 12 years, I had blamed myself. I had wondered what I had done wrong. I had raised my daughter believing her father simply didn't want us, but now I knew the truth that he had been manipulated. That I turned toward my husband. "Why didn't you come back when you discovered the truth?" His eyes filled with tears, because by the time I discovered it, I was already too late. Then he told me something that I never expected. Daniel was still free, and he knew exactly where my daughter lived. That I immediately ran toward her room, but when I opened the door, she was gone.